His special skill is that he is a tattoo artist, aka magical tattoos. That's cringe. Hi guys. So I've been working all week on the second part of the Sunless Citadel, the next Dungeon Delve episode, and it's 3:30 in the morning, and I gotta have this video out in a couple of hours, and it's not done. I totally thought I would have it done by tonight, and unfortunately I have deadlines tomorrow, and that's not gonna happen. So instead, I figured that I could have a little video for us today anyways. You know, just you and I hanging out, chilling, reading about some crazy stories on r/RPG horror stories, which, yes, has become almost the entirety of this channel, mostly because it's fun. You guys just let me know. Sound off in the comments if you guys just are super tired of this. But I'm not. I'm having a great time. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our most comfortable sponsor here on the channel, MeUndies. Finishing the Sunless Citadel was quite a challenge, but you know what else is a challenge? Having comfortable underwear. You know, everybody would have probably had a better time in the Sunless Citadel if we just had some MeUndies. So stop wasting your time trying to find the perfect pair when MeUndies has got you covered. Like these ones. Wow! My drawer is almost entirely full of MeUndies, and I love them. They're breathable, they're stretchy, the fabric is super soft, I love the way that they feel, and they're just really comfortable. Plus they have a huge variety and different types of underwear, and overall I'm just getting a really good bang for my buck when I'm buying from MeUndies. Not only that, but MeUndies also has hundreds of 5-star reviews, they use sustainably sourced materials, and they work with partners that care for their workers. And the best part is that if you get them and you don't like them, that first pair is completely on them. So kick off lounge season and save up to 20% when you use my link, meundies.com/fireball, or my code at checkout, which is fireball. That's 20% off that you can save on your MeUndies order if you use my link or if you use the code. All right, time for the second part of the Sunless Citadel. Reading RPG horror stories at 3 in the morning. Yay! Woo! Yay! So I found this story on r/RPG horror stories because I was bored and I was scrolling through it, and I found this one and I skimmed it, and it's crazy, and I thought we could just read it together. You know, for the full effect, you should also watch this at 3 a.m. That would be perfect. So this story is called "Player Utterly Ignores All of the Character Creation Guidelines, is Upset That His Character Isn't Accepted." And I wanted to read this because I have had experience with players like this in the past. And oh my God, I am an old school GM, 34 years of DMing. Whoa, that's a lot of DMing. Running an old school game, D&D 2nd edition, aka AD&D. So I should preface that I've never played 2nd edition D&D. I know nothing about it other than Thaco. I recently lost a player due to health issues, so I ran an ad on some local Facebook groups for a replacement player. One of the guys who applied claims to have played a lot of 2E D&D, so he was confident that he'd be a perfect fit. While I don't mind teaching the system to those who have never played 2E, or even D&D of any version, it never hurts to have someone who is comfortable with things. When I told him the rest of the party were 4th level characters, so he could bring in a character of the same level, he immediately offered me his 1st level fighter / 3rd level cleric of Thor. Man, old D&D is so funny. Thor? Just Norse gods. Like, that's just so funny to me. Because, you know, back then, that wasn't all in popular culture. That was the cool stuff. That was what was interesting and fun. And now, I don't know. Who am I kidding? I would totally play a game that had Greek gods. That'd be so sick. I explained that we play in my homebrew world and he'd need to make a character that fit in it. Understandable. If you decide to join a game and a DM's got their homebrew world, you gotta make a character that's gonna fit into that world. You can't just show up and be like, yeah, no, I'm just playing Gorthag the Gunslinger, who's a half-orc with 2 revolvers, and he also worships Jesus Christ. We did a little chatting where I went over the basics, that my world is a low magic world, the idea being a realistic fantasy world, magic is special, clerics are using actual divine miracles, etc. Yeah, that's not magic. That I would send him a spreadsheet with my pantheon in a summary of their powers and such, that I had a website with details for each deity and loads of info on the setting, and I would email him a basic primer on how I DM, information on the world, a quick list on what I needed from him, but please reach out with any questions at all. He agreed, so I sent the content and told him to let me know when he had a character concept. Okay, so he gave him a primer for the entire world so that he can make a character that fits into the world. Sounds great. Usually, players are excited in this stage. They ask questions, even though the emails I send are pretty thorough, and I don't mind. That's great, actually. Yeah, totally agree. Anytime we're getting ready for a campaign and I'm like, here's the setting, here's the idea, this is when my players are like, and want to yap about their idea and yeah, 100%. He asked if I had a stat increase. 2E doesn't do that feature, so I replied no, only racial modifiers, things like +1 dex and -1 con for elves. He asked me about how different religions get different powers and spell lists. I told him to check the website for the granted powers per deity, and that yes, spell lists varied slightly depending on the given deity's sphere of influence. That's interesting. The healing and health goddess doesn't grant much in the way of combat spells. Only the nature-related gods grant the full range of woodsy spells. The war gods tend to grant fewer utility spells, that sort of thing. He then demanded full spell lists for each deity. I let him know that I don't keep every single spell list for every deity. If another player has run a cleric of that deity, I can easily share the list, but if not, I go through and assign based off of the tenets of the religion. That wasn't good enough for him. He insisted that he needed the complete spell list to pick a deity. By now, I was growing frustrated and began to think that we were not going to be a match, and I basically told him as much, that if he couldn't come up with a concept without an exact spell list, that my table might not be what he was looking for. He backed off and said he would send me a character concept. In the meantime, I decided to check his Facebook profile. His email address says that he's a lawyer. His Facebook shows that he likes to post photos of his so-called mansion. Nice-ish house, hardly a mansion, and car. Where is this going? Every pic of him is a selfie with him mean mugging the camera. Oh my god. Usually with his Special Forces trucker hat on, apparently. He's ex-army and very proud of that. He had pic after pic after pic of him in the same hat, looking like he was ready to eat a baby? What? Okay, what does this have to do with anything? Except for 2 identical posts a couple days apart, featuring an attractive woman in cutoff t-shirt holding a Nerf gun in each hand, and his caption about how this was the last woman to break his heart, and he was posting this as a warning to all women. Whoa, WTF, my dude. Okay, did we spell out WTF? That evening, he sent me his character concept for my low magic, realistic fantasy world, if you forgot. No, I remember. Behold, Nomadic Baron Elric Savage. What is this name? Nomadic Baron Elric Savage? That's kind of awesome, actually. I'm just saying, if somebody showed up to my table and that was their character name, I'd be like, hell yeah. His special skill is that he is a tattoo artist, aka magical tattoos. That's cringe. If magical tattoos are fine, but calling them tattoos? Brother, He nominally worships one of the gods from my world, but this character is from another world, and in his culture, their warriors travel through magical portals to other worlds for adventure, plunder, etc. He's a planeswalker. Then return home after every level up to revel in their glory. Bro. Naturally, having these tattoos replaces all need for material or somatic components, as the magic is permanently inscribed on his skin. How convenient. At this point, I informed him that we were definitely not the table he was looking for. It's like, bro, that's cringe. I explained that he had taken a concept from another world, using another magic system, and ignored everything about my world. I applauded his creativity. Well, good. But pointed out that he clearly wasn't interested in what we were looking for and wished him luck. He argued that he argued we continued. It went on from there. Why doesn't the story just end? Why doesn't the story just end? He argued that he had given me something that I could plug into my world since he knows nothing about my world. Mind you, one of the emails give a high-level intro to the world, to how I do religion, to the various races and nations, etc., and he had access to probably 300 pages. That's a lot. That's way too much. Of reasonably well-organized content about the setting on the website itself. That's an insane amount of information. I mean, yes, this guy has no excuse, but man, that's a ton. I told him that he could have read the blurb on the religion he picked a nation off the map, and given me a generic enough backstory to work in any fantasy medieval setting. But instead he had chosen a dimension-traveling wizard warrior priest with magical tattoos. Nice. The fact that he's arguing about it. Why did he just go, great, have a nice day? Like, he's mad? I, again, told him that this was cool. I actually think it's stupid as but I tried to be nice. I told him the idea was cool. I actually hate it. I think it's stupid. And that it might fly well in, say, Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms, but not a low magic world where, again, his spells are granted miracles from his god. I didn't even bother addressing the ability to plane shift pretty much any time he wants. Plane shift is not available to priests until 9th level and would have to be homebrewed to work like he wanted. I mean, yes, I agree. That's stupid and silly, but actually, I told him I was looking to tell a collaborative story, that he wasn't interested in doing 20 minutes of skimming to come up with a concept that fit in the world, that we weren't going to be what he was looking for. I told him that in my experience, players who last and have a good time make an effort to become a part of the world. They want to flesh it out through their play. I told him that some of them go on to become reoccurring or powerful NPCs that they and other players get to interact with. I explained that we're still going? Why are you ranting at this man? Why? Why are you continuing to communicate with this person? That's the real shocker of this story. Why didn't either of you just go, understood, see ya? What is happening? Bro, be done with it. Be done. You don't have to keep talking to him. He's not going to play in your game. I don't know why you're trying to teach him a lesson. I explained that in my experience, players who bring radical things from other games pretty clearly want to play that game instead. That's fine, but that's not the game that we are playing. That doesn't make the player bad, it just makes them a bad fit. I once again stated that he just wasn't looking for what we were offering, but I wished him well. Was this an argument of some kind? Were you both going back and forth? What caused all this explanation? So of course, he clapped back, telling me that this is obviously an ego game, just about me and my ego, that he hadn't picked any countries from the setting because I scream of ego and would have been offended, that he was no longer interested in playing with me, didn't want to serve my ego, and this was not fun. I think they're having more fun arguing. This is what they wanted to do. The DM's like, guys, we can't play right now. I'm arguing with this guy who's not going to play in our game and telling him why he's never going to play in our game. As much as it might have been fun to stoop to his level, just kiss already. You're both so obsessed with each other. Why are you arguing this much? Oh, you're clearly making something for like an entirely different game. You wouldn't want to play in my 300-page campaign setting. Oh yeah, well your campaign is just like a big ego thing for yourself, and you very clearly don't care about the idea that I have. Yeah, well, I could just think you're not very interested in playing this kind of game, are you? No, not really. I think I made an entire concept that doesn't really fit into your world, and that you just don't want to accept what I want to make. What if I don't want to accept what you want to make? What if I don't want to accept what you made? That's how I feel this is going. There's so much tension. As much as it might have been fun to stoop to his level, yeah, I stayed high road. I told him that I went to great length to support my players and help them develop their stories. I pointed out that I had been nothing but respectful. Oh, again, keeping it silent that I had never ridiculed his stupid Munchkin character, but that since he was now throwing insults, he had proven that my intuition about him was correct. Let me reread that. I pointed out to him that I had been nothing but respectful, again keeping it silent that I had never ridiculed his stupid Munchkin character, but that since he was now throwing insults, he had proven that my intuition about him was correct. I wished him luck, and that was that. Matt 2's lol. Okay, Matt 2's is cringe though. And I'm sorry, some of the authors for these posts I can't handle. That is a very interesting story. I want to see the comments. Yeah, that's a ton of red flags. Also, Mad Twos is one of the silliest words I've ever heard. Anybody thinks that was the height of cleverness too. Mad Twos is wild. That's one of those things too where it's like you can't call it cringe because then it makes it very difficult and awkward at the table. You can't be like, you're not calling it that, because realistically, if a player shows up to your game and they're like, I want to call my spell this, you can't be like, no. Like, that's just rude. You know, you can do, it's D&D, like, whatever. It's a really awkward scenario where it's like, yeah, my guy does Mat 2s. Okay, bro. I guarantee you this character was already created prior to the game, hence why he asked for a specific spell is to check against what he had already made. Yeah, exactly. And this is what I wanted to get into. This is what I have had experience with in the past, is players showing up to a game being like, oh, here's my character that I made, and they're kind of weird and wacky and outside the normal bubble of the world and the idea of the campaign that you've made. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a little weird. All right. And then they try to like fit into the story, and then they're trying to take things that aren't normally within the game, reaching out for homebrew, kind of going this strange route. And then I find out later that this is like a character they have played before in another campaign, or they had made previously based off of a hyperfixation of something in their past, and they really wanted to recreate it in this game. And sometimes that's fine. That if that's your character concept, then that's totally, I can deal with it. It's totally cool. But some people get so married to the idea that they're like this guy, and they're like, nope, I don't care. This is what I'm playing. I'm playing Planeswalker. He's from a completely different world, and he's got Mat 2s. And this is a little toxic. This is annoying. I hesitate to call this a red flag. This is just super cringe. You know what the saddest thing is? The core concept of a high magic society that chucks you into another dimension to survive with nothing but your wits as a rite of passage is actually really cool, especially for newer, more checked out players who won't read the setting docs. You have one, we all do, but this feels like a concept for something that's basically zero magic. You're stripped of everything and told to survive for a campaign's worth time. Everything around it is stupid. It's a neat idea if implemented correctly, no question about it. This would be glorious in, say, a Spelljammer campaign or the like, but trying to shoehorn it in here is just silly. Okay, this is the last thing I'm going to rant about. So this is why I don't like low magic settings. I think there's a lot of merit in creating a box of limitation for your campaigns. That's totally fine. In game design, you want to have limitations so that players can either break them or go outside of them or work within it and come up with their own things. And low magic settings can accomplish that very well because you don't have a reliance on this tool that can get you solutions to problems. Instead, you have to come up with your own solutions. I talked about this in the Sunless Citadel, that's why I like lower level games. That is not my problem. That's actually the part I love about low magic settings. The part I don't like is that if you notice, there's a lot of Reddit horror stories that come from people who have low magic campaigns because a lot of DMs really like to limit when it comes to low magic settings, because a lot of the times it stems from the fact that the DM doesn't want to deal with all that magic stuff, and they want to create a story in a setting that goes, nope, this is what happens, and a guy with a sword is deadly and you die. And that can be super annoying because the DM can have a power trip like the entire game because they can force the players to do whatever they want, and they can't accommodate for when somebody wants to be a spellcaster, basically. Yeah, I have a solution to this situation because I have this spell that's kind of like the whole point of magic and why it's fun. So no doubt there are some games and settings and DMs out there who can run great low magic settings, but most of the time when somebody's like, oh yeah, I just like low magic settings a little bit more for D&D, I'm like, I don't agree. And I think that that is a slippery slope into creating a really limiting game where you force your players to act a very specific way that D&D doesn't really accommodate for, because magic is really important for D&D. It's like the backbone to the entire system, because you can have characters that can like do insane things that aren't necessarily spells, and when you're just relegated to being a human with sword or something like that, it can get really boring and limiting. So anyways, that's my rant about low magic settings because I talked about it in the past. So yeah, that's basically it. Personally, I think the real challenge is going the opposite route. Make a high magic setting. That's so crazy. There's so many things you have to think about and implement. That's why Eberron is one of the coolest worlds ever, because it's effectively a high magic setting and it still has gritty, dark, nuanced themes. It isn't just like, woo, there's this magic everywhere. In my opinion, those worlds are way more interesting and way more fun. So yeah, anyways, this has been Jacob Rants about a story that I saw on Reddit that I wanted to talk about and yell about. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching this video, and Sunless Citadel out soon. It's nearly done. I'm gonna have it done. Okay, I'm gonna go edit this and upload it and then sleep for a billion hours. Goodbye.